This is Dean DeMarzo on Longest Solo Ever, and I'm going to take a few minutes to walk you through a mix of a tune I did for my friend's band, Adesta. They just did an awesome cover of Deftones' Change in the House of Flies, and I got the chance to mix it for him, so we're going to take a few moments here, walk through the mix. So as you can see here, it's a decent size mix. There's 8 mics on the drums, couple of guitars, 1 clean, 2 distorted, bass, a couple of synth pads for that eerie floating sound in the background, and then 2 vocal tracks, which I've then doubled and messed with a little. And then over here I've got my sub mixes, which we'll talk about in a minute. Why don't we start with the guitars here? Here's a nice clean direct guitar sound they gave me. Real easy to work with that. I just loaded up Native Instruments Guitar Rig, which is my favorite amp sim. And I've just got a Fender Twin Reverb here I can pull in. You can hear the difference right away. It's that nice, creepy Deftones guitar. And then after that, just a quick high pass on the EQ there, just so we don't get too much of a buildup of bass frequencies. And then for each group of instruments, I've got a submix here, which are these tracks on the right here. If you're familiar with Pro Tools, these are just aux tracks that have each assigned to a group of instruments. So in this case, I've got a guitar bus here, and on that guitar bus, I've got a copy of Isotope's Alloy, which is just kind of, it's doing a little bit to carve out a space for the guitars in the spectrum. It's really subtle what it's doing there. Yeah, you can hear it more it's more for the distorted guitars than it is the clean. But then we've also got the CLA, the Chris Lord-Alge guitar channel. It's kind of cheating, but I love this thing. It's so, makes everything sound so much better. That's just boosting the treble, compressing the heck out of it, adding a little reverb and echo. It's just a nice overall effect for sweetening up your guitars a little. Moving on to the distorted guitars. Again, I'm just using Native Instruments Guitar Rig. Here's the direct feed of those distorted guitars. And with my amp channel here. That sounds kind of gross and harsh up front, but it really fits well in the mix once you put all the pieces together. All that is what am I using here? This Romfire is not actually in the chain. Taking that out. So this is just an orange amp, just a Tiny Terror or whatever. In parallel with a another twin reverb that I'm just fuzzing the heck out of. You can hear the two being mixed together. Here's the orange, and here's just the twin reverb with a big fuzz face in front of it. And the two of those together give a really nice full guitar sound. You can find the right balance. So here's those two guitars together. And you can hear that really, there's not a lot of warning when that note comes in. I pretty much have it chopped off right to the downbeat. You can see I even actually cut off some of that guitar entrance, just so when this chorus hits, really just punches you right in the face. As you can see, I have chopped the drums up quite a bit, and that's it's not necessarily that they were really off or anything. Jim's a killer drummer, but it helps a mix so much, especially a nice heavy tune like this, for everything to be dead on the grid. And so for that reason, I've used Pro Tools Beat Detective, which is an amazing feature for time correction. And we can move on to the drums right now. Again, I'm going to mute down all these other submixes. So we just have my drum bus. We'll talk about this P drums channel in a minute. All right, so looking at the drums here, we've got see a couple channels labeled aux kick, aux snare. Those are samples that I've added in. The drum tracks they gave me were fantastic. I have a couple of kicks that I really like from the Steven Slate library that I just felt needed to be in this mix, I would say. Here's the original kit they gave me. And that's a great sounding, nice dry drum sound. I wanted a little more crack out of the snare, so I'm just gonna solo up the snare drum here. And what I did first was just chop off the lows and highs, just so they weren't competing with the kick drum or the. I didn't really chop off the highs. I'm at 10K, which is, there's not much going on in the snare drum there in the first place. And then the second thing I've got is Alloy's Exciter here, which is just such a nice feature. It really, you can hear what it's doing. Really just adds that crack that you need in a Deftones tune. And then that's about it. There's a little bit of limiting going on there. And then past that, I'm handing it off to the CLA drums, the Chris Lord Alge Waves drums channel. Set to the snare setting here, and that's just really giving it exactly what I want out of that. And at that point, I am mixing it with a sampled snare, so... And again, that sounds kind of harsh. It is, it's nice when it's mixed in there, though. So if we bring back in these plugins here. And I've got a couple more instances of CLA. I've got the overhead patch set onto both my hi-hat and overhead channels. It's just a nice way to really sweeten up your drum tone. Here's what that's doing to the overheads. There's Alloy and CLA. So here's our drum channel all together. That is with this kick sample. I really like that kick. Now moving over to the drum bus here, which is, it's kind of acting as a master channel for the drums. I've just got a simple little stereo widener here, just the default Pro Tools one. Just kind of stretching the stereo field out a little bit. And then just Alloy. Doing a good amount of compression on this, cutting the mids just slightly. And then I've got a nice multi-band compressor here. You can see what that's doing. Without it. And with. And the other thing I've been doing to the drums, which you'll notice this P drums channel right next to it, that's a separate aux channel in Pro Tools that I've got here, which is really just being fed off this little send at the end of the line here. That is, you'll notice it's muted right now during the verse. If we hop ahead to where the chorus kicks in, I've got some automation on here that unmutes it. And that's where it kicks in right there. Here's what that P drums channel is. That's just drums compressed to heck, just absolutely squashed. And what that is this Native Instruments solid bus comp. Came in complete 9, and it's really cool. And that's just squashing the heck out of it. A little bit of cutting off the lows so it doesn't get too boomy. And then that's getting stretched all the way out. I've got that hard panned with this stereo widener tool. And then at the bottom of all my auxes here, you can see this NOS channel. That's a Waves nonlinear summer. It simulates like an old SSL desk or a Neve, whichever one you have it set to here. I've got it on the SSL right now, and I love what it does to just kind of glue a track together a little bit. That's my drum sound right there. I'm pretty happy with that. The bass, I did not do much to touch. They did a great job getting a good bass tone. They recorded into a nice SansAmp pedal straight into the board. So he's got exactly the tone he likes at their shows. So that's Adam's bass tone right there. I'm kind of a stickler for like flawless intonation when it comes to the bass, especially in a big, thick rock mix like this. So I do have auto-tune on his bass. Not that he needs it, it just pushes it that little bit towards perfection. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to a mix. It's really subtle what it's doing. It just, when the mix all adds together, it does help. Then on this end, I've got Alloy doing some work for me. Pretty heavy-handed EQ curve here, but I needed to carve out some space for the guitars to sit, if you can see right here. And the other, one of my favorite things to do with a bass, especially a direct bass, is Alloy's multi-band exciter. You can split it up into different frequency ranges. I've got it cut right here about 165 hertz. This low channel, that's just the deep lows of the bass. That's not getting touched at all. I've got this meter all the way down. This isn't doing anything to those. The highs, on the other hand, well, everything above 165, it's getting kind of crunchy a little, which I like. I like that it gives it a little more crunch. I don't know. And that's gives it a nice bass tone that really meshes well with the guitar, as you can hear. And last but not least, of course, is the vocals. Brandon did an awesome job on this tune. For the verse, I really wanted to capture that really creepy, haunting tone that Chino gets on the original track. So I've got I watched you change. First thing I'm doing is crushing it with that Solid Dynamics, same plugin I used on the drums. I watched you change. And that lets you hear every little breath, every bit of the air coming out. Really makes it creepy. And then of course Alloy, my favorite plugin of all time. You can see I'm chopping out this section of the frequency spectrum all the way up to about 600 hertz, and then chopping it off again at 5K. And what that gives you is that creepy kind of transistor radio effect. I really like it. And then past that, I'm crushing it just a little more and giving it a bit of a gate in Alloy. And then I've got actually a second compressor. I've got 3 compressors this is going to. It's a little excessive, but it gets the job done. And then from there, I've got that going into a copy of Mac DSP's Revolver, which is a great reverb plugin. This is set to an old EMT, like plate reverb kind of sound. I watched you change. And you can hear that. And then finally some delay, which is just the default Pro Tools delay. Set to quarter note and half note. EQ'd a little, and then crunched up quite a bit to really give it the heebie-jeebies. Here's what that sounds like. Watched you change. Then moving on to the chorus vocals here, I do have a little bit of auto-tune on there. He didn't need much. It's just to give it that extra push towards perfection, as I've said. After auto-tune, I've got Alloy in here, of course, giving it a little bit of grit with the exciter, as before, and a lot of compression. A little bit of limiting on the back end here, and a de-esser, which is people do not use often enough. It really comes in handy, just for reining in that sibilance. And then another one of my tricks for the chorus, 2 tricks on this track actually. One is this amazing plugin called Little Microshift from Soundtoys. It was free for a little while back in 2013 or 12, and I was lucky enough to catch it, pick it up, and it just simulates the old harmonizer rack mount effects that just serve to thicken things up a little. You can hear as I mix that in, it gives it almost kind of a chorus effect, but more subtle. It's like doubling vocals, but without the muddiness that comes with that sometimes. The other thing I've got going on this track is another instance of auto-tune. This one is crushed a little harder. I find mixing this in the back gives it a really nice, thick lead vocal sound. And then I've got a couple more instances of Revolver here. One as a main reverb for the guitars and bass. Another just separately for the drums. The drum one is their snare chamber, all Revolver. And the main one is a factory hall kind of sound. And then on the master channel, I've got Waves NOS doing a little bit of work to just glue things together a bit. It's really subtle what NOS does, but you can hear if I compare them like this. That's without. And that's with. You can see it just kind of brings out a little bit of harmonic content that wasn't quite as present before. And then the last thing is iZotope's Ozone, which is my usual mastering tool. Since I was both mixing and mastering, I did my mastering in the mix, which some people will frown on. I don't really see it as that big of a deal, as long as it gets done. So I've got a couple things going on here. A simple, just mid-cut, because those mids tend to stack up so easily, especially when you've got distorted guitars and you know, a male lead vocal. You can really have a lot of mid build-up, so I'm just counteracting that here just a little. We'll talk about what this big squiggle is up here in a minute. And then a harmonic exciter. Same thing Alloy's doing to the individual tracks. This is just brightening up the track just that little bit more. I've got multi-band dynamics to really keep the different frequency ranges in check. A stereo imager widening out the highs, reining in the lows, bringing them towards mono. And then this is one of my favorite features of Ozone's. It's called EQ Match, which is I just took the original Deftones track, Change in the House of Flies, and played it into Ozone. It captures the frequency spectrum of that song, which you can see is this blue line here, and compares it against the frequency of my original mix, which I believe is this red line down here. And it creates a it compensates with its own EQ curve, which is this line in between those two. And as a result, you can sort of emulate the tone of another mix. Obviously, your mix has to sound good in the first place. You're not going to be able to replicate a fantastic mix with garbage. So you've got to get it most of the way there, but this can really put the shine on it. So here's what that's doing. And then bringing in the EQ matching. Pretty cool. I can even push this further. If you go back and listen to the original mix, it was pretty trebly on their record. So I've got it at a nice happy medium, just kind of hinting towards their tonality. That's about it for the mix. The guys at Glasswave Studios in the Hudson Valley, where this was recorded, did an awesome job tracking it. Made my job very easy. After this, be sure to check out the video on Odesta's YouTube page, and of course Glasswave Productions and Veruzo Photography, who shot the video. That's all for today. Have a good one.